Top 5 decks for May 2022, and this is going to account for Ghost from the Past, and, well, not quite at the point of what I should be saying would be a new ban list just yet. But let's dig on into this, shall we? Don't beg 30% of you guys have not smashed Live Crap out and subscribe and smash it so we can get to 105,000. Number one on our list here is going to be Sky Striker, and I assure you that this is not some sort of bias at this point in time. I've really looked over like a lot of the results on like the regional levels and things, and I just got to give it to Sky Striker, ladies and gentlemen. The fact that this deck has had as much diversity in between the three variants and has managed to succeed in keep up with what's going on in the game, you gotta give it to this deck and you gotta respect its grind. It has been one of the most consistent decks to show up in the rogue slots, and I think it's going to continue to do a lot of work in the long term here. But I think the most important thing out of all of this is because it has that adaptability aspect to it that's kind of pushed it to the point that it has here. It's just that. Its adaptability is the thing that is pushing this deck very, very far up the ladder in terms of doing things. And I mean, granted, the best deck in the room as of right now in terms of pure representation is a little bit insane. The deck doesn't have a god-awful matchup against it. I mean, obviously, like a Mirror Jade tearing down Striker's field. Oh, look, you want to watch me float back and, you know, do my thing? I'll go ahead and, you know, recombine up into another Sky Striker monster during your turn, and then, you know, you'll have to deal with whatever else I'm going to have coming out of that. So that is definitely something to really give consideration to here. At least I'm judging this based off of the regional level. It did top the last YCS, which is definitely something to really consider as well. It's not like a high representation on that higher level, but their regional level, very, very much so. Next up here is going to be Based. Now, I kind of wanted to put Based a little bit further down because the deck is still doing what it wants to do. But it's really disappearing out of the regional world right now. The whole Scythe Lock shenanigans that some of the builds can do, and remember, I am lumping up some of like the other like 60 card explosive variants with this. It's kind of knocked itself out of the playing field here, and that's actually kind of why the deck is just kind of starting to disappear at this point and just go into the sunset. You know, it was a great time. It was fantastic that we had this, and you could interchange this with Flunder. By the way, Flunder doesn't even make top 5 right now, and I'll explain that once we get into number 1 here. I would definitely, in terms of sake for top 5 at this point in time, I would definitely say that Based still maintains its same power scaling. If you really want to argue, you could put Cyber's Eldritch here as well and say that Based and Cyber's Eldritch, because they do pretty much both fit the same bill for what they want to set up. It's just, you know, one wants to do it in its own way, you know, via the whole Cyber's package and all that other stuff. And then you also have, you know, all the other cool little things that Based itself can do with like the Rose Dragon package. It's just the hodgepodge 60 card variants that can do things are really what you're looking at here in the encompassing part of this that aren't named Praying Kids or things like that. So yes, they have lost a lot of popularity in terms of representation as of late, and it is really mind-boggling to me to see how much this deck has gotten bullied around as of late. Poor deck, honestly. Next up here is going to be Sword Soul, and in this exact same category, I want to mention the 10 Yi Synchro deck. Now remember, the little 10 Yi Synchro deck plays what, like 3 Sword Soul cards, and it still functions on pretty much the same premise. We're gonna make big Synchro board today, buddy! Looking at regional data and looking at the YCS out of Bogota, I only saw 1 Sword Soul and Top Cut there, but one thing that's been very consistent across all the regional boards is you're seeing 1 to 2 of these squeaking in, you know, in your very infested branded format. I think it's very interesting, actually. because this deck's branded matchup, I mean, it's pretty bad considering the rest of the format, because, you know, one Mirror Jade just picks off all the hard work that you essentially set up, but it is doing it relatively okay. And should the deck be at number 3 only strictly because of its overall representation it's had? You know, when I'm looking at every regional breakdown, except for, you know, 1 or 2, and I'm seeing, you know, 1 to 2 of each of these variants doing the 10E variant for the synchro package, and then if you're looking at like just Sword Soul doing well, yeah, it's a very consistent contender. You know what, I gotta clap for it. I didn't think that Sword Soul would bring it on back to the point that it has at this point in time, because nothing really has changed with this deck. You know, there's nothing grand or extravagant that really has set this deck down a different path. It's just the top end power scaling on the format pushed down really hard and crushed a lot of the competition that kind of was lurking down there. So that's definitely one other thing to kind of consider with this, is when the top end is pushing down, other decks that were once tier 1 are struggling here. Next up here is Praying Kids. To nobody's surprise here, Praying Kids they're kind of fighting back. It's not a pleasant sort of duel back here in terms of the meta for what Praying Kids want to do. But you know what? Praying Kids have some tricks in their book. They can play the 60 card variants, they can play the 48, the 50, the 54. You know, they're pulling pages out of based book here. They're using the Magician Souls package. They're grinding and capitalizing on all sorts of these particular card choices that they have working for them. And honestly, that's the thing that like is allowing them to keep up right now, is because their decks can evolve and can include some really weird stuff in them. Unlike Branded, which we'll talk about here in a second. But in terms of scaling and power, this deck still remains at the top at number 2, and I don't really see much of a change to that unless we see some sort of like hits or things like that. You know, in terms of regional top 8s as well, you're seeing this deck not get as many tops as Despia by any stretch of the imagination, but it is usually up there next to Despia in one of the most consistent things. I mean, looking at Pagoda for what we've seen for results here, I mean, 11 Despia versus 6 Praying Kids, and then the next deck coming in, what, like a 2 representation in terms of things. Isn't that a scary thought? All right. So once again, Praying Kids' adaptability in terms of their deck building is what is allowing them to hold on, because they have so many different tech choices that they can build. And it's almost like these larger numbers of cards in these decks is really, really interesting in terms of things. All right, it's almost like you can give a deck an edge by playing more cards at this current point in time here. Number 1 on our list is, to nobody's surprise here, Branded / Despia. Now, within the sphere of this, you have multiple builds. All right, so you have the Frightful package seeing play, you have Adventure seeing play, Adventureless, DPE without DPE. And then I also want to give a sub-mention here to Branded Eldritch, because I already know somebody's going to be like, you didn't mention, where's the Eldritch, Robbie? The Branded Eldritch is going to be lumped up here, because 2 did top the YCS, and I have seen Branded Eldritch kind of starting to move up the ladder a little bit. It's not moving up crazily, but it is still within the same category of using the branded package to create this massive advantage. Oh god, Mirror Jade, Golden Lord, you know, 2 Piles of Destruction. But obviously, like, as of this point in time, I think Adventure is kind of starting to overtake a little bit. Though on a regional level, I think any of the variants can do well. I just want to point that out there. On a regional level, you can compete with any of these variants, and as long as you don't have a brick fest, you should be fine. Obviously, once again, like we said, Praying Kids, adaptability is the reason why this deck is doing so damn well. Alright, when you have such a diverse card pool of different things that you can include in your deck, and those little tech choices are the things that are making you win. Also, this deck is the reason why Flunder's getting bullied out of Top Cut. Drop the Necroworld Banshee, Zombie World, yay! Your opponent can't tribute summon. What's the bird player supposed to do? Guys, leave a comment about how much you guys think. Make sure you guys smash the living crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. And I will see your beautiful faces back here later in the day, guys. Peace out. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.